my breaststroke or my technique might look very aggressive, but when it's the fastest, it's the most calm and composed. So it's a very complicated complicated thing. People just think I dive in, but it takes years and years of visualization, years and years of practice to even get half a second off your time. I think without thinking too deep about it, I think high performance for me is being in my kind of flow state, letting the performance come to me instead of going out to get a performance, something that comes naturally. I think obviously you've got a huge opportunity for preparation, and obviously the training, the nutrition, the psychology, all these thousands and thousands of variables which make a high performance athlete. But when it really comes down to the day, for me, it's almost like that moment was meant to be, like it was fate. And the flow state is just full confidence in what I'm doing, and full confidence knowing that you can't be beaten. So I think there's not really a simple answer, unfortunately, but I think it is just being the athlete I was always meant to be. When in 2014, I struggled with obviously the crowds, I found the arena quite intimidating. So I knew that the training was taking care of itself. I could work harder than anyone else. I could outwork most people, if not anyone. And I loved it. I loved the pain and the gain, as you say. But I knew my arena skills were down. So I was like, okay, how do I improve my arena skills? And one tactic we used, especially into 2016 Olympics, was we basically, before, I'm a big stand-up, which is 100-meter breaststroke in training. So basically like for like replication of what we're doing in the race. We put headphones in before we did it, and I was visualizing the race. I was visualizing what I was doing, but in the headphones, it was like I was in the call room. So there was almost like a white noise beforehand, and it'd be like lane 8, my guy, lane 1, other guy, lane 2, other guy, and then it comes down to lane 4, Adam Peaty, Great Britain. And all this audio is real. It was taken from the 2015 World Championships. And that helped me massively, because one of the biggest things was like, oh, what's the crowd going to be like? What's going to happen into 2016 in Rio when I'm lane 4 and I'm Adam Peaty? How do I expect, what I'm going to feel, trying to predict these things that are going to happen? And that was one thing which has a huge impact on me, because by the time I got there, I didn't have to worry about that. All I had to worry about was my technique and the race. And really all of that was taking care of itself anyway, because of muscle memory. And, as I said, I was in my flow state, I was enjoying it. I wasn't worried about what's the crowd going to do, or, how are they going to respond? I was fully able to concentrate on what I was doing in the moment. I think a lot of athletes use music. I think for me, music has been a huge influence on my career. I'd be lying if I said it had no impact, because I really think that for me, I'm a soul athlete. I need myself, and I need my own headspace, and I don't know how I get it. I can't manipulate it when I want it, but it just happens to align at the right moment. So I can't just listen to a song and go, right, that's it, I'm in my flow state, I'm going to take on the world. It has to be a purpose, and it has to be 100% genuine and authentic. So I can't go out to a race and go, I need to do this for this, or I need to do that for that, or et cetera, external motivations, extrinsic motivation, sorry. But for me, it has to come from within. So, is it that I could take a defeat? Is that going to motivate me? Is that going to put me in my flow state? And that's what happened a few days ago at European Championships on the 50 meter. I knew the guys were close to me. And on the semi-final, I knew that I had to be something extraordinary into the next 24 hours. And that the whole 24 hours I was just in that state of, my preparation was spot on, my food was spot on, every single thought process around the 50 meters, which is only 26 seconds, 25 seconds, was spot on. So I arrived there and I was already in that flow state. But music can bring me up and bring me down, like, as everyone knows, that's why sad songs exist. People want to relax, I guess, and just feel that different type of energy. But for me, also, heavy rock, for example, or heavy grime or heavy hip hop, especially going into the call room, it just gets me into that headspace that I need to be in. But I think flow state in swimming is especially, it's more about the communication with the water and the understanding of where you send in the water than fighting the water. My breaststroke or my technique might look very aggressive, but when it's the fastest, it's the most calm and composed. So it's a very complicated thing. People just think I dive in, but it takes years and years of visualization, years and years of practice to even get half a second off your time. So it's a ridiculous job at the end of the day, isn't it? So. Oh no, everything that goes up must come down, and that is true. I think the best athletes in the world, we say let's say good athletes. Good athletes can do it once. Great athletes can do it a multitude of times, but the best athletes in the world, who are very few and far between, can do it for a very, very long time. Looking like Federer, people like that who stay at the top of their game for so long. So I believe that for a longevity in an athlete, you do need to come out of that flow state. It's unhealthy to stay in that flow state, because for me, my communication breaks down, my trust in the team breaks down, everything breaks down. So I think if you keep, it's very hard to explain, but for me, for example, in 2016, I was in that kind of flow state. I was ready to attack, as I call it, for that Olympic gold in 2016 for about 4 weeks. I was on edge for 4 weeks, pretty much. But when I tried to, communicate with mum and dad, after that, I almost felt like they were almost aliens, because that was a different person. Yep. So coming out of that flow state it's hard, because you come home and everything's expected to be normal, when we know, obviously, you've been to the Olympics, which isn't normal for a human brain to understand, I don't think. But you come home and everyone expects you to live this life that, you've been living, but that whole goal of why you've been living that life is gone. So, what keeps my nutrition intact? What keeps all this other stuff intact? Why am I not going down a pub, etc., my social life? Everything revolves around the Olympic gold and the process to that, and winning. So I think if you take yourself out of that, it's very hard to be normal out of that flow state. As soon as you come out of that, it takes a few days to adjust back into that. But I think, coming back to the original question, if you can almost manipulate a way back into that, whether that's friends, family, music, gaming, anything that relaxes you, I think you can almost manipulate yourself back into that. But it does take time, of course it does. It's a hard one. I think I naturally had a come down, because it's obviously the greatest event on earth, the greatest race on earth for myself, and it felt like everything was achieved. But I used that time to kind of keep my mind busy with other things, like moving out of my home that I lived in all my life. And obviously commercially, I had other things going on. So I tried to redirect the focus as much as I can. But I wasn't as wise as I am now with my feelings. If I felt down back then, I'd be like, oh, just having a bad day. But now if I'm like having a bad day consecutively, I'm like, okay, this is what's up, or this is out of placement, or that I can understand myself a little bit better. But I think, honestly, like I try not to overthink it. I think anyone's going to have a come down off that. In terms of in terms of your body as well, like the glycogen levels or the performance related stuff to that, if massage, and the simplest way I can do it is is that you have a whole team around you for years and years and years to get this one performance, and then you go home and that team is still there, but it's not there at the same time. You can still call upon them, but everyone's gone home. It's all over. The cycle starts again. And that's a natural process of the Olympics. Every 4 years, there's a massive cull in the team and a massive cull in, the next, there's a massive new recruitment into the next athletes or the next superstars. So I think it's a really hard one to answer, because it's 5 years ago now. I can't really recall what that was like, but my nearest experience to it would be, 2019. After that, there's almost a huge amount of relief that everything has paid off, because at the end of the day, sometimes sport is a gamble. You might be the best athlete in the world and it might just pay off on that one day, because unfortunately the Olympics isn't who is best 365 for 4 years, it's who's best on the day, on that morning. And hopefully you've trained hard enough and you've pushed yourself hard enough that even on your worst day, you can still win. And it's having that passive aggressiveness with yourself to, get that performance out of yourself. Well, I learned through an ex-SAS soldier, and he said that through his whole career in the SAS, what helped him was that if they had a problem and they knew it was a problem, but if they couldn't do anything about it, stop worrying about it. And if there's nothing you can do about it, then why are we worrying anyway? So accept it and push on. I know it's very hard to, it sounds a lot more simple than it is, because sometimes I've got a problem in my head and I can't get around it. But trying to put your brain into that mindset of that, if you can't help it, then why do we worry about this kind of thing? And I think it's being completely honest with yourself and trying not to hide those feelings that may create anxiety. So for me, if, for example, if someone swims extremely fast before the Olympics, that would create anxiety for everyone, because it'd be like, oh, what are they going to do Olympics? What's going to happen there? But for me, it would be like, oh, doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean anything. It's what happens on a day. And I know on the day I'm the best performer in the world. And I've got, 6 or 7 years of, championships and world records to prove that. So it's not like I'm just going out there and chatting, that I haven't done any of this. It's having that confidence. But I think anxiety is, everyone has it. I think you'll know more about the psychology behind it, and why it happens. But in as simple terms as an athlete is, if there's nothing I can do about it, then, expel it, because there's no place for that energy to take away from my own energy. It's almost like a demon on my shoulder. And I think if you can live with that, I think one of the most valuable things that I've learned in the past year is that if you can, me and Mel always say that freedom is the best feeling, and just being you, being free, not caring what's going on outside or social media. Social media is getting worse, man. It's like horrendous. Anything you see, like, oh, why haven't I got that? Or why can't I do that? And it's like, oh, I can't do that because I'm doing this. I'm trying to be the best at what I do. But it initially creates a feeling of jealousy. And I'm like, why do I feel
that? And have you experienced that?
Of course, of course. You literally see people on Instagram. I'm like, oh, how have you done that? Why can't I have that? And that's just jealousy. That's just the initial thought. And then you come to thought and like, hold on a minute. You never know what they might be going through or what they've gone through to get to that point. But also, most importantly, it might not even be real. So, unfortunately, social media has created that. And I feel for the next generation of people and athletes who come up through that system of their lives living around social media, because it's so dangerous. And I hardly go on any of it now. I just go on, upload, see how my friends are doing, log off, probably 10 minutes. I have a timer, 15 minutes a day for all the social media, because any more time than that, then my brain starts to go into this state of just a fog, like literally a zombie. So it's and obviously it creates those negative thoughts that don't need to exist, because if you really took it away and actually thought about your life, and you walked outside and breathed in, you'd be like, we live such a good life, and personally I do, I'm very grateful. And I think if you have gratitude and humility at the same time, then you're free, I think. And I think that's the most important thing an athlete can have when they're behind the blocks in an Olympic final. If you're fully confident in yourself and who you are, and not having to compare yourself to other people, you're a weapon. Yeah. So he was on the team, a European junior team. He's Scottish, Craig Benson, basically his name. And he was really, really fast as a junior. I was like, how am I going to catch this kid? And I saw him 2012. I was like, I want that so bad. Literally, something was just burning inside of me, and I couldn't put it to rest. It's like this extremely positive / negative, high energy source of just hunger. So I went back to the drawing board. Okay, we need to do this. We need to do this. And it took about 2 years to get anywhere with that. 2013, the year after, I missed the team by 0.06, which is literally like a millimeter, a few millimeters. But again, that was good for me because I was too inexperienced. I was too young to make the team, a senior team then. Then 2014 came along and I took on the world, won the Commonwealths, then I won Europeans, 4 European golds back then. And then I got my first world record. And then the first world record came after that a year later in 2015 in the 100 meters. But a catalyst is important because I think without that hunger and without that drive, I would be nowhere near where I am today. I used that anger and I used that and channeled it into what I do every single day. And I didn't let up. You know, if Mel said, you got 2100s and I got to 2100s and I'd be like, right, give me 5 more. Because I knew the rest of the world were only doing 10 100s and going 20 was double, but I knew also that no one was going to ask for more. So it's asking for more and knowing that pain is only really, it sounds very cliche. Instagram's ruined all these sayings, but you know, pain is temporary and it will subside. And the more pain you can put yourself through and the more suffering you can put yourself, the more muscle you can tear and the further you can take your heart and your mind, the more prepared you will be when you need it. And for example, 2015, at the World Championships, Cameron van der Burg went out like a shot, like so fast. But I thought I was in the lead because I was on the other side of the lane. I was like, oh, this is okay. I've gone out on a good time. I turned, I looked at I just looked at his feet go. I was at his feet and I was like, oh God, I've got some work to put in here. But somehow I won that race because I say somehow it's because of all the work and all those times I chose to do more that have paid off in all those races. So I know, you know, in all these races that I go to, if someone is level with me, if it's head on head and it comes down to it, I know I've worked 10 times harder and I can have them. And that's the confidence that you can't get overnight. That's confidence that's built over 13 to 15 years. I think the fire, it does change. I think when you're younger, you can take more risk and you can do a lot more. And that's just that's growing up and how your brain changes around risk management and consequence. So I think as I've got older, that my main motivation now is to obviously win the Olympics and be the first British swimmer to ever defend an Olympic title. But I also want to create history, which is doing a world record in an Olympic final and then going on holiday after that. So I think I know, I've got 2 months left for the Olympic run. And then, I can take, quite a bit of time out of the sport to reflect, recover, refill my soul, refill the energy. So my motivation is really, kind of being the athlete and being in the moment and just enjoying it. I want to enjoy the Olympics. I want to, take everything in and look back and go, that was my best shot. So it's very different from the motivation, which I started out in 2014. I was like, right, I just want to be I want to be the best. I don't care what it costs. I don't care how I'm going to do it. I'm going to get it. It's very different. Now it's more calm and calculated. Where do I put my energy credits? Do I need to do this? Do I need to do that? Do I need to ask for more today? I don't know, because I've got a hard set tomorrow. So it's really communicating. Communicating is one of our biggest skills now, and one of the hardest skills to conquer, because communication is, it's very, very hard in sport, because you don't want to appear. Sometimes if I ask for more or ask for less, it's like, what's Mel going to think? Is she going to think I'm in the right headspace to go even more? If I tell her I've got a niggle in my shoulder, is she going to stop me from doing my set? So it's stuff like this and how you utilize the team around you to get the best performance when you need it. I think a great coach it's a relationship that you have with your athlete or your client or your customer. I think a great coach is charismatic. I think charisma is so important. Adaptability, like are they adaptable? How are they under pressure? Again, like there's hundreds and hundreds of things, but I think one of the most important ones is honesty and communication with that honesty, and just be willing to try something different. I think a coach who has been doing the same style for 10 years or 20 years, because it's old school and it works, won't necessarily get my, respect, because that just works. A great coach for me is someone who continually learns, continually tries new things, and can have fun with it. We always talk about performance so seriously, because we talk about medals, we talk about money, we talk about Olympics and how much that can have on the thingy, and what does that equal for the millions of people and the funding back home. There's so many things which are tied to it. Yet we need to keep the fun in there, and that's what Mel does brilliantly. Because if we lose the fun and we lose the feel to the youth of the sport, and we lose the real reason to why we do it, there's nothing to it. We've lost the sport. And that's why you see some of the greatest athletes in the world probably fall off, because they've lost why that kid picked up the racket. They've lost why that kid picked up the goggles. So never ever lose that person inside of you, and never ever lose that person and go, right, I just want to be better than yesterday. That is it. Simple. Keep it simple. And the greatest coaches always understand that he'll keep it simple. And that's what Mel does brilliantly.